My father once told me that everyone wants to live by the water, and that places by the water would all soon be developed. At the same time, places by the water are more and more threatened by climate change, which is exacerbated by property development, both because people travel to places by the water where they don't live, and because places are built by the water to accommodate them, using materials which, through their production, release large amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. So the problem presents itself: how does one create a space for habitation by the water that is adapted to rising water levels, does not use materials that exacerbate those rising water levels, and is accessible across socioeconomic standings? Belvedere looks to confront these questions through various methods and materials while also looking to be comfortable and aesthetic, and giving all of its guests a unique and intimate experience with the surrounding environment. Belvedere takes the form of side-by-side tiny houses built out of a ruined house on the shore of the ChengLong Wetlands. The project looks to attract a combination of artists, scientists, and tourists to visit the wetlands. The pair of tiny houses will act as an artist residency for some and an AirBnB for others, which will support the financial needs of the artist residency, with the goal of being cost neutral. Artists, musicians, authors, poets, other culture workers, and scientists will be invited to stay in Belvedere as an artist-scientist residency in order to make site-specific work and research, and through that work will mythologize the ChengLong Wetlands through various formats of contemporary culture. As an Airbnb, Belvedere will present individuals with a short-term vacation rental unlike any other. In both, residents will undergo a transcendentalist experience of being immersed in the surrounding landscape while living in close proximity with local fauna. Isolated and natural, but still comfortable and convenient. It is through this experience that the project seeks to manifest a passive educational experience where learning and inspiration comes from observation due to complete immersion into the environment. For the resident, the ChengLong Wetlands will no longer just be a landscape to be viewed in passing, but a roommate that is ever present with its own habits and personality that can be understood by having dinner in front of a different sunset every day, watching birds fish for food in the evening with a comforting drink in your hand, falling to sleep while looking at the stars and the lights of the distant community on the water, or waking up to the sounds of bird calls and fish jumping every morning. It's through this experience that the project also hopes to spark a conservation ethic in its residents, but that would be insincere if it wasn't also built into the project's architecture. As such, Belvedere is constructed out of primarily repurposed and recycled materials, using energy-efficient construction techniques as well as low-cost solutions. Thus, individuals will be provided with a simple yet comfortable stay in a durable structure that is easy to maintain and also exists as a model for low-impact architecture. It is not a house that could be found in any other place, but a dynamic lived experience that is both visually apart from and built into the landscape of the wetlands. The construction of Belvedere was approached through a methodology of the arts and crafts movement and American craftsman architecture, but is adapted to use primarily repurposed materials. As such, elements of the design were dictated by the found materials and then crafted into the elements that make up the structure of the building. Windows were fabricated or modified, doors were adapted and repaired, and even the joists and beams that provide the structure of Belvedere were engineered and assembled, rather than using new or reclaimed timbers. This method of making sees traditional ways of woodworking reimagined within a contemporary context, using unconventional and often overlooked, but also economical and sustainable materials. While living and working in Japan, I was taken to visit several traditional wooden homes and explain the importance of wabi-sabi in their construction. Wabi-sabi was described to me as an appreciation and acknowledgement of imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. Wikipedia's article on the philosophy says that its characteristics include asymmetry, roughness, simplicity, economy, austerity, modesty, intimacy, and the appreciation of both natural objects and the forces of nature. I see this as deeply imbued into Belvedere's design and construction, not because its design particularly mimics Japanese architecture or any other style of architecture for that matter, but because it is a structure not made to last forever. It has its own entropy that is built into its foundation, that is meant to require repairs and maintenance, tending to and care. It is imperfect and simple, but also comfortable. It accepts the surrounding environment as part of itself, instead of trying to fight against it as most architecture does. And because of that, Belvedere lets the wind blow through it when necessary, sometimes lets the rain in, and takes advantage of the sun's illumination as much as possible. In this, the project from design to completion was oriented towards the creation of architecture which creates comfortable spaces, but which does not exclude its surroundings. That which is able to breathe in the environment's sights, sounds, smells, and feeling. Belvedere's infrastructure is a visible and even highlighted part of the architecture, that which lets itself be known and understood by the structure's inhabitants, so that they may better understand the direct influence that they have on their local environment. It can be thought of in terms of the series of posts and beams which makes up the actual physical structure of the houses, as well as its electrical and plumbing. However, there are also ways in which waste from living in Belvedere is disposed of. The processes of waste disposal in contemporary life is normally invisible, and because of that, it goes unthought of and uncared for. When the toilet is flushed, water drains into hidden pipes, or our garbage is taken away to faraway places. Belvedere makes these processes visible by allowing wastewater to drain from the kitchen sink directly into the front garden, or requiring for the composting toilet's contents to be occasionally discarded. In these processes, we have no choice but to become aware of our own waste by preparing for it as well as dealing with it. The evidence of this infrastructure becomes apparent and allows visitors to become more understanding of the effect that their presence has on their surroundings. It's through this myriad of ways and means that the project aims to be sustainable economically in terms of its management and, most important, ecologically, while simultaneously highlighting the site-specific characteristics of the wetlands. The architecture and the local environment become a collaborative partnership that work together to deliver an unequaled experience for guests. Those personal experiences lived by the residents are then transcended as what they produce ripples out into cultural waves for the artists or scientists in residence. This is transmitted by the art, research, music, poetry, and literature that they produce. And for the tourists, it manifests itself in the form of social media posts, word of mouth, etc. By immersing individuals in solitude with the ChengLong Wetlands within architecture that amplifies their experience, a relationship will develop that continues to live with a person even after they've left.